So this is an article in the Washington Post that was published last year in July, but I didn't see it until now, so I'm only going to talk about it now. But this is amazing. Is it true that transgender women to men can earn that juicy male privilege? The answer is yes, but the real question is, does male privilege even exist? And as these transgender ladies to men found out, not really. This all hinges on the fact that, as they say, it's a lot easier for women who take testosterone to become passing men, as in they look like men, people respond to them as if they are biologically male and treat them as such. Apparently it's very easy. They say that all you need to do is give them testosterone, and within 6 months to a year they start to virilize, getting facial hair, a ruddier complexion, changing body odor, and a deepening of the voice. So it's very easy for a woman to become masculine and look like a man, but it's a lot more difficult for men who want to transition to become female to change the fundamental shape of their bodies to look like a woman. We spoke with 4 men who transitioned as adults to the bodies in which they feel more comfortable. Their experiences reveal that the gulf between how society treats women and men is in many ways as wide now as it was when this person first transitioned. But their diverse backgrounds provide further insight into how race and ethnicity inform the gender divide in subtle and sometimes surprising ways. Let's read on. So this was a black woman who transitioned to become a black man, and now they don't want to call the police because they find themselves being hassled by the police, more often, at least in their opinion. Women, of course, have no qualms about calling the police. They don't even think twice. But apparently, as a man, people have told them, you're crazy, you never call the police. Because just in the example here, the cop treated him as the person who is potentially going to be the problem. Apparently they get pulled over a lot more now. I got pulled over more in the first 2 years after my transition than I did in the entire 20 years I was driving before that. Wow, how's that male privilege working out for you? This is absolutely fascinating. There are also ways in which men deal with sexism and gender oppression that I was not aware when I was walking around in a female body. This is something we could probably describe as female privilege. A couple of years after my transition, I had a grad student I'd been mentoring. She started coming on to me, stalking me, sending me emails and texts. My advisor and the dean, both women, laughed it off. It went on for the best part of the year, and that year was the year I was going for tenure. It was a very scary time. I felt very worried that if the student felt I was not returning her affections, she would claim that I had assaulted her. I felt like as a guy, I was not taken seriously. I had experienced harassment as a female person at another university, and they had reacted immediately, sending a police escort with me to and from campus. It felt like if I'd been in my old body, I would have got a lot more support. Because you would. Demonstrably, from your own experience. This is something we could call female privilege. This is something that men simply aren't privy to, as you are now learning the hard way. The next one is a chap called Xander Keeg, who says, "It now feels as though I'm on my own." Isn't that fascinating? When you were a woman, you felt that the society was there to support you. Now you're a man, you don't feel society is there to support you. In fact, it might be a bit of a problem for you, really. Anyway, prior to my transition, I was an outspoken radical feminist. No, really? That's really unusual. I spoke up often, loudly, and with confidence. I was encouraged to speak up. I was given awards for my efforts, literally. It was like, oh yeah, speak up, speak out. But when I speak up now, I'm often given the direct or indirect message that I am mansplaining, taking up too much space, or asserting my white male heterosexual privilege. Yeah, that's what they do, to shut you the fuck up. Because before, you had female privilege, afterwards, you are just a man. No one needs to hear from you, oh white man, even though you're a Mexican and a transsexual. If they don't know that, if they can't perceive it by looking at you, then you are in fact a straight white male and you have no place in this conversation. Because that is how they work. It's how they've always worked. It's how they will always work. They can't conceive of a time when a white man might actually have something relevant to say. But a woman, oh yeah, speak up, speak out. Here's a fucking award for being a woman. Like, this is how unbelievably gynocentric Western societies are. And I tell you what, I am glad that these transgender people are here to tell us what it's actually like being women who then have to experience life as men. It's a bit different to how it was previously, isn't it, love? I find the assertion that I'm now unable to speak out on issues I find important offensive. Oh, do you? Fucking do you really? That's fascinating. Do you still describe yourself as a radical feminist, just out of interest? That's something else I'd like to really know, now that you've decided to join the team that has to shut up because of the way they were born. Do you find yourself feeling that feminism is perhaps part of the problem? Like the way that you used to view the world wasn't accurate and didn't really describe the lived experiences of men? Is that something that we're finding now? My ability to empathize has grown exponentially because I now factor men into my thinking and feeling about situations. No greater condemnation of feminism is possible. It is an unempathetic female supremacy movement, as this person is demonstrating. They know what this is all about, and now they're not subject and they're not privileged in this way by feminism. Suddenly, oh god, now I have to start thinking about how men think. Oh my goodness, they have thoughts and feelings of their own. And feminism doesn't do anything to address any of their problems. Imagine my shock. Prior to my transition, I rarely considered how men experienced life or what they thought, wanted, or liked about their lives. I have learned so much about the lives of men through my friendships with men, reading books and articles by and for men, and blah 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 blah. Social work is generally considered to be female-dominated, with women make up about 80% of the profession in the United States. Currently, I work exclusively with clinical nurse case managers, but in my previous position, as a medical social worker working with chronically homeless military veterans, mostly male, who were grappling with substance use disorder and severe mental illness, I was one of few men among dozens of women. Plenty of research shows that life events, medical conditions, and family circumstances impact men and women differently. But when I would suggest that patient behavioural issues like anger or violence may be a symptom of trauma or depression, it would often get dismissed or outright challenged. The overarching theme was, men are violent, and there was no excuse for their actions. You see what male privilege is like? It must feel like kind of a curse, having gone from being a female-bodied person and enjoying all the privileges that came with that, to becoming a male-bodied person and being told that no, you're inherently violent, you are in fact the problem, there is no excuse for your actions, and in fact, we don't even need to hear from you. I do notice that some women do expect me to acquiesce or concede to them more now. Let them speak first. Let them board the bus first. Let them sit down first, and so on. Oh, really? You mean as if they're enjoying the privileges of a class of people who think that they deserve this for being what they are. Merely being female means that you as a man must concede or acquiesce to them. Welcome to the real world, Neo. Isn't that a red pill? I also noticed that in public spaces men are more collegial with me, which they express through verbal and non-verbal messages, headlifting when passing me on the sidewalk, using terms like brother and boss man to acknowledge me. Yeah, there isn't a sisterhood, but there is kind of a brotherhood, isn't there? You know? As a former lesbian feminist, I was put off by the way that some women want to be treated by me now that I am a man, because it violates a foundational belief I carry, which is that women are fully capable human beings who do not need men to acquiesce or concede to them. I don't think they do need that, but I think that they've been enjoying that for such a long time that if you took it away from them, it would feel like oppression. Isn't that how it works? Privilege is invisible to those who have it. Yeah? Oh, all of this feminist rhetoric is really coming back to bite them in the arse, isn't it? What continues to strike me is the significant reduction in friendliness and kindness now extended to me in public spaces. It now feels as though I'm on my own. No one outside of my family and close friends is paying any attention to my well-being. Yes, that's what it means when we say that society is gynocentric. It cares about women more than it cares about men. It's not equal, it's deliberately weighted in one side, in favour of one side instead of the other. That's what you're discovering right now. This is a real thing, it's a phenomenon that happens all across the West. Welcome to the club. This is fascinating. I can recall a moment where this difference hit home. A couple of years into my gender transition, I was travelling on a public bus early one weekend morning. There were 6 people on the bus, including me. One was a woman. She was talking on a mobile phone very loudly, remarked that men are such assholes. I immediately looked up at her and then around at the other men. Not one had lifted his head to look at the woman or anyone else. Yeah, you get used to it, mate. The woman saw me look at her and then commented to the person she was speaking to about some arsehole on the bus right now looking at me. I was stunned because I recall being in similar situations, but in the reverse many times. A man would say or do something deemed obnoxious or offensive, and I would find solidarity with the women around me as we made eye contact, rolled our eyes, and maybe even commented out loud on the situation. I'm not sure I understand why the men did not respond, but it made a lasting impression on me. Yeah, you're on your own, okay? We understand, and sometimes women are just assholes, mate. And men don't tend to unionize against women in the way that women tend to unionize against men, as you just demonstrated. No more solidarity for you, I'm afraid. Enjoy that male privilege. I hope it's serving you well. Then we get to the question of, why do women talk all the time? Because when you transition from being female to a male, you kind of get sick of hearing them blabbing on all the time, apparently. That's not my opinion. That's this person's opinion. As a woman, I'd walk down the hall and bump into some of my female co-workers and they say, hey, what's up? And I'd say, oh, I just got out of this client meeting, blah, 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 blah. What's up with you? And then they'd tell me their stories. As a guy, I bump into a guy in the hall and he says, what's up? I launch into a story about my day and he's already down the hall and I'm thinking, well, that's rude. So I think, okay, well, I guess guys just don't really share. So next time I'll keep it brief. By the third time, I realized you just nod. Apparently, people were only holding the door for me because I was a woman rather than out of common courtesy as I'd assumed. Not just men, women too. I learned this the first time I left the house presenting as a male, when a woman entered a department store in front of me and just let the door swing shut behind her. I was so caught off guard that I walked into it face first. That's right. As soon as you're out of the privileged club, you realise what women can be like when they're being inconsiderate to other people, specifically men. This whole stuff, all of this, comes down to the fact that you didn't know how good you had it. You didn't know the way that women treat men, and you thought that men were oppressing women. You thought that men were the ones who were the source of all negative things, and women were the perennial victims of that. How much did you learn, eh? The hormones made me more impatient. I had lots of female friends, and one of the qualities they loved about me was that I was a great listener. After being on testosterone, they informed me that my listening skills weren't what they used to be. Wow, this is getting a bit biologically essentialist, isn't it? Here's an example. I'm driving with one of my best friends, Beth, and ask her, is your sister meeting us for dinner? 10 minutes later, she's still talking, and I have no idea if her sister is coming. So finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I snapped, is she coming or not? And Beth was like, you used to like hearing all the backstory and how I get around to the answer. A lot of us have noticed you've become very impatient lately, and we think it's that damn testosterone. So it turns out that biologically men and women are different, and these hormones actually matter. These actually inform our behaviour, which is why we have gender roles, to inform how we should treat one another because of these biological differences. What a fucking world we live in. I can't believe that millennia of lived experience and traditional wisdom are being reinforced by the ability of a man or woman to transition from one gender to the other. What an incredible world we live in. It's definitely true that some male behaviour is governed by hormones. And I guess this comes back to the feminist interpretation that men are just violent beasts. Well, I guess it's that damn testosterone, isn't it? Instead of listening to a woman's problem and being empathetic and nodding along, I would do the stereotypical guy thing, interrupt and provide a solution to cut the conversation short and move on. I'm trying to be better about this. Maybe women should try and be better about it. Maybe we don't need to hear a woman's life story when we're asking a simple question. I mean, I'm just saying, this is genuinely something that matters, apparently. Matters enough for the Washington Post to publish an article about this. So, okay, women, how can you change to make men's lives easier? Oh, God, that's fucking heresy, isn't it? How dare I even suggest that?